Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey there, AfterBuzzers. Welcome back to AfterBuzz TV's Narcos After Show. We're here breaking down Season 1, Episode 10, the finale, Despegue.
Despegue.
My name is Isaac Johnson. You can follow me on Twitter at Isaac Johnson, Instagram, The Isaac Johnson. And I'm joined once again by Ashley Chapman.
Hey guys, we're at the end of the row. We made it.
Yes.
Episode 10.
We all survived.
Yes, we all survived.
Yes.
Barely. Well, let's not hold our breath.
Yeah.
We haven't made it home quite yet, but yes, we made it this far, guys. Tweet at me, Ashley_Chapman. I'm also on Instagram, Ashley_Chapman. So
there you go.
let's jump in.
Head over to youtube.com, AfterBuzz TV. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. I ask this question every week, but what did you think of this episode?
Well, first, I would want to know, what do you think of the series as a whole? We've gotten all the way to the end of Season 1, so what's been your impression of this whole season?
I've loved the series. Big fan of it. A big fan of like its sort of view on like imperialism and all that kind of stuff. And the slow slide towards evil or fast slide, depending on who you are. And this episode specifically, I think was the best episode. I feel like they saved the best for last. I don't know if it's because we've been building towards this moment, and it felt so satisfactory to finally get there, and the government to finally be like, yeah, we just got to go after him, which is duh, you know. But maybe it's because of that, but I felt like this was a very effective episode, very action-packed. I love the storm on the prison. I was just like, whew. Oh, it's over? I want to see another episode.
I know. That's always the heartbreaking moment of Netflix. Is like you get to the end, you're like, no, wait, more.
Yes, exactly. How'd you feel?
I agree. I really enjoyed this series. I love crime dramas, so this was a really great story. I think that depicted Pablo Escobar in a way that I don't think we've seen before, especially on TV or in a TV series. It's really gritty, which I like, and I like that the creators of this did the very best that they could. I think they did a great job, and I appreciate them doing a great job at sort of maintaining the authenticity of it.
Sure.
Because with a lot of stories that are based on real life events or real life people, you know, it's very easy when you're doing something for entertainment value to get caught up in the commercialization of it and just do stuff just for the entertainment value, not really worry about the content. But with this, even though it was extremely entertaining, like the content was also amazing, and we got a really great sense of who this guy is. And so overall, I'm, you know, kudos to Netflix too for taking this on, because I don't think that this is a show that would have worked well on cable or
maybe HBO or something like that.
Or if it was, it would have been altered significantly.
Yeah, quite possibly,
But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to Season 2 with all that said.
Yeah, it seems like Netflix can kind of just do whatever they want.
Whatever they want.
They're like printing money at this point.
Right, exactly.
They're like Marvel, like, oh, we wanted to do this, so we did it.
Right. They're burying money in their backyard.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
But legally, so that's the difference.
Or having their wife box it up in case things go south.
Or putting it in their Netflix couches at work. So.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
That's how you want to do it, folks, legally.
In the event that you and I ever work for Netflix, we'd like to say that they're above board.
Exactly.
So let's start talking about Steve. Steve there. Who knew there would be some consequences here?
Oh, right.
That was funny because, so the ambassador, like, you know, like, you guys are suspended. I told you not to leak this story. We didn't leak this story.
Of course.
Of course you didn't, dude. And then he's like going home and talking about like, oh, some time off. This is going to be sweet. And then there's like guys are running out of his garage, bagging him. But I'm like, wow.
Which,
like,
can I say, I was really upset at the fact that fake out. Because I thought, oh my God, it was leading back from episode 1. He put the hit out on him.
Oh,
this is Pablo Escobar's man. So that's what I thought going into it.
Could have been, yeah.
It could have very well been, but I was a little frustrated at the fact that it didn't kind of link up to the first episode.
Right.
And I'm happy that he's okay. It would have been a really bad situation if it was Escobar's guys. But yeah, that whole fake out thing, I was like, what? Come come on.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I guess we know from history, like, that he lives, so nothing bad was necessarily going to happen to him. But it was kind of like a very scary moment of like, oh, shoot, maybe they're going to torture him. Who knows?
Right.
Turns out it's just Pacho. Good, suave Pacho. Just
and
such
his
a
nice
nice
little
dude.
cute, short, what is it?
Short
Gentleman's,
robe?
short robe, gentleman's gown.
Yeah, that was interesting. But of course he would. You know,
of course.
That's him. He's a very sophisticated drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to strike up a deal there with Steve. I feel like Pacho thinks that he's like vastly different from Pablo. I mean, we sort of talked about this a little bit last week about how he's like, oh, he's way more likable than Pablo is.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like such a sociopath, even though he's ruining people's lives with cocaine. But like, what do you think about Pacho there trying to make that deal with Steve? There's no way Steve's going to go for this deal. Like, did he really think he was going to affect him?
I mean, I would never say never.
Okay.
There's a lot that's happened in this show, especially on the side of the DEA, the CIA,
True.
U.S. Embassy, that I don't think they initially intended to happen. I mean, they've made a lot of deals. They've done a lot of cover-ups. So, I mean, for me to say at this point that he would just never go for that, especially Steve now, as we've seen his character kind of develop a little bit.
That's true. Yeah.
He's obviously hesitant, and he has every good reason to be, because it's a deal with a drug dealer. I mean, that never really ends up well, as we've seen throughout this series. But, I think I've been trying to figure out if I think that Pancho is scared, like if he's trying to make these deals because he's fearful of Pablo Escobar sort of getting away with everything that he's done and sort of regaining that power, and if it's coming from that point of view, or if it's just he's conniving and he's kind of like Pablo in a sense as he sees opportunity and he wants to take advantage whenever he can. So I don't know.
So. I agree. I think that that's kind of his deal, is like taking advantage of a situation, just doing it with like a whole lot more finesse.
Yeah. And then I'm sure that a part of it is just him begrudging Pablo for killing his men and for all of the craziness that he's caused, for like encroaching on his territory, for making, taxing him this ridiculous amount of money. So, I mean, he's been pressing his buttons as well. So I think that this is also probably a dual thing of maybe him being somewhat fearful, but then also him just wanting to get revenge,
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think that like no one really likes the rule of Pablo. They just have to put up with him because he's the dude. But I think that he feels like there's probably a more civilized way to go about this sort of thing. Maybe not bring so much attention on them. And it does seem like, I think he said something to the effect of like wanting to sort of take over where Pablo left off.
Yeah.
And, like we can kind of help you get him. There's something like that he says to Steve there, which is kind of like a nice little carrot to put out there in front of Steve, because that's the thing that Steve wants the most. He's determined. He'll break almost any rule to get him. So it's something that he wants, but I like the resolve of Steve being like, nah, not going to do it, man. So Javier there, he's like working with Y Session a little bit. They're like, I forgot my socks or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he comes back in.
It's something really random.
She's like, you got 5 minutes to get out of here. Yeah. Which is funny to me for some reason. But, so somebody turned Steve in. And we were talking about this before we started. It leads me to believe, because of the whole thing with the informant, at the end of the last episode, being like, maybe he just needs some more convincing, Steve.
Yeah.
And then seeing Javier with him at the end of the episode, I'm like, so did Javier set him up? Like, to try to, like, bully him? Like, what's Javier's ultimate play here? I mean, I guess we don't know, but...
I guess we don't, but I don't know. He seemed really surprised when Steve confronted him about it. Like, he did genuinely seem confused and surprised by it, and it took him off guard. And then, even when he was in the bar, drinking after it had all been said and done, like, he seemed really troubled by it and kind of weighed down by it. And, now that you bring up the point, that when they last were discussing this, he just needs some convincing. That makes sense that he would do it, but it had to be somebody on the inside, because there's no way that, I wouldn't say no way, but it'd be very difficult for you to tap a line at that moment, like you'd have to know that the line was going from Steve to Carrillo when he basically gave him the information on where to find poison and shoot up that club. So it had to have been an inside job. And for whoever it was, I don't believe it was Javier. Maybe he somehow spilled the beans, or, he led someone inadvertently to that evidence. But I feel like it was done maliciously by somebody else. And if so, like what is to be gained from it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can kind of see some of that. I don't think we've been introduced to a character that could sort of, you know, stab Steve in the back. I mean, not literally, obviously,
Yeah.
but like the fact that him and Steve were looking at those photos together, and those were the photos that Pacho had. I don't know. There was a little bit of me that was like, okay, like this is Steve's guy. He wouldn't do this to Steve. But we've also seen him like bend the rules before, and then I don't know, like some of his like concern for Steve read like a little false to me. Like I don't know. There's some gray area there, I think, and at the very least, I think what they're setting up is for those two maybe to not trust each other so much in the future. Yeah. That's just kind of what I see from it, especially him taking, you know, Javier to the wall there, which was kind of cool to see Steve's like, resolve, like, you know, that thing. And then you see the DEA agent, which why doesn't this guy have a name?
Yeah.
Gosh, the real actor's name, like, I'm blanking on it, but you know what I'm talking about, like big black brother, like this guy should have a name. I don't know. It's just a thing for me, but you know, they kind of have him walk down the hallway like, ooh, maybe it was him.
Yeah.
But in some ways it would kind of like make sense that the guy that would kind of do this to him is the guy closest to him. But at the same time, they both want the same goal, which is to get Pablo. So that's why I'm kind of like, I'm not fully convinced. But it would make some sense that it could be Javier, but maybe Javier's got some other play.
I mean, I don't know. It could very well be that, and maybe that is something that they're setting up for season 2. I think maybe ultimately what they're just trying to show us is that, you know, even with them sort of getting closer to taking down Pablo, there's still a lot of corruption within their own organization and within their own unit that probably needs to be addressed, like now that he's getting taken down. I mean, at this point, we still have quite a ways before he gets taken down, first of all. So a lot can happen. A lot of deals can be made. A lot of people can be coerced, bribed, whatever. You know what I mean? So I just kind of took that as, okay, they're just trying to open it up to, you know, we've won this war, but there are other wars that will potentially develop as a result of this, and we just have to keep our eyes open for that. So. Yeah,
absolutely. When I like that they're kind of, at the very least, making us question Javier's loyalty or question somebody's loyalty within, because they didn't just accidentally get that stuff. Even though the sort of phone tapping thing was like, seemed a little convenient to me, but like, could be like, oh yeah, they tapped your phone, you know, that kind of thing. But like, no, somebody turned you in, but who knows?
And I was questioning Steve a lot in that scene when he finally is reunited with Connie, and you know, like how eerie was that? It was so eerie.
Is he so hungry for Pablo that he's willing to sacrifice his family, sacrifice his marriage?
But you know, I mean, he could have said, you know, I get where you're coming from. Like, once this is finished, then we're going home. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely. he could have, even if he didn't fully believe it, an open promise, you know, or an unended promise. Like, he could have come up with some excuse.
Sure.
But he just was looking at her sideways, almost like she was twisted. Crazy? Like, this is home, you know, like, we grew up here, you know, you live down the street, and this is, you know, like, no, this is not home. So I don't know. I kind of get the feeling like he's drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, and he's kind of getting caught up in the lifestyle, or just, you know, being in Colombia, and just, you know, you know, they talked about at the beginning of the series, like, Colombia is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Sure. Like, a lot of people feel like, you know, God had his particular hand on it, and one of the reasons why it kind of got messed up or tainted was because of the drug trade. So, I mean, it's a very different place, and it's different from the U.S., different from where they've been. And I think that, you know, especially with the whole incident with him and the guy that he hit, being an American in this country, he kind of has a certain power, you know, absolutely, over people that, I don't know, maybe he's starting to feel it a little bit, and it was just a really interesting,
especially as a DEA agent, like, he's kind of untouchable. They covered that, like, what, episode 4 or 5 or something like that, and you know how they're untouchable, and we do see him kind of stepping into his own, like, liking that he, you know, has this position of power. He putting guns in people's faces, shooting some random guy's tire last episode. You know, maybe that is it. Maybe he's just kind of enjoying being in a place where, like, there are rules for him, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of consequence for him breaking these rules. Oh, you got suspension? That's not the worst thing in the world. Just, you know, you're still an agent. And it was interesting. you know, when she's like, can we just go home? Because, you know, okay, you finally got him back. You didn't know what happened to him. You know, she's like on the verge of tears there seeing him, and he's like almost not affected by that at all. And the moment she's like, can we go home? Somehow I just knew he was going to say, no, we are home.
Yeah.
You know, but I think he's just kind of lost his way a bit there. Because if he goes back to the States, I guess he's got to like, work at a desk or something, or maybe not have it as exciting sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, and he's kind of, you know, feeding off of that power. And, you know, that just really surprised me too. It's like, you were kidnapped. You had no idea who took you at first. Like, this was an extremely scary situation. And for your wife too, like, she didn't know where you were. Yeah. You know, like, at the very least, comfort. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if it was BS, just say it, you know, like a lot of husbands do. Just say the BS that your wives want to hear.
Take it easy.
Hey. Gentlemen, am I wrong?
I've never said anything that falls to my mind.
Yeah, sweat beads are
Those
flying.
jeans always make you look as thin as possible.
Oh yes, and your nose is getting bigger by the second. But you know what I'm saying? Just something to appease and to sort of settle the situation. It would have been nice, but no, he's stuck to this. This is where, like, even if we catch Escobar, we're not leaving this place.
Yeah, it's a nice kind of character moment to find out, like, oh, he's slipping too, you know.
Yeah, so that'll be great to see where that progresses throughout the next season.
Absolutely. So Galleria there, like, they're finally like, all right, Pablo killed these two dudes, Galeano and Moncada.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, of course not.
What are you talking about?
According to him, no, he didn't. But they're finally like,
wait,
wow.
The bodies are burned, right? Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
Exactly. There's no evidence saying. I don't see any bodies here.
I love that. He was like, wait, the bodies are burned.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, yeah, no, I totally didn't kill him.
Absolutely didn't do it.
What?
Prove it. Show me a body.
Right.
But so the government's finally like, we got to go after him. He's doing illegal things.
Gosh darn it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what it took?
Yeah, we let him build his own prison, which we knew was basically like a casino hotel.
Yeah, like the lunacy of him making, like any criminal, making their own prison, making their own rules for which they stay in that prison, and then being like, well, he's doing bad things in there. It's not a real prison.
Yeah.
He's not in there, like, I mean, yes, he's stuck in there because he can't leave. But he lives whatever kind of life he wants. People come and go as they wish. He has ladies come and go as they wish. He's got all the money in the world.
He's got weapons.
Yeah.
Like, can you seriously, that armory? I was like, really?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
How did this happen?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. He's Pablo Escobar.
Yeah. So they're finally like, okay, we're going to go in there and get him. Wait, hold on. Let's make it look like we got to move him to another spot. That'll trick him.
Which I'm like, did you get your lying advice from Steve? Because that was horrible. Like, even you know.
There's no way he's going to buy this. Like,
oh,
look,
we need to secure. You know,
he's a lot of things, but he's not dumb.
He's beyond not dumb. Like, he made you agree to letting him build a prison. This is not an idiot that we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
Come correct. If you're going to come at him, come correct. That's all I have to say. So, yeah, I did think that was pretty ridiculous. And I love the scene where he's like, yeah, you guys are obviously lying. And you should have said somebody who could at least lie a little bit better than you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So
basically what ends up happening is he's like, okay, Eduardo, you're going to go in there, have a little talk with him. Nothing bad can happen there. I'm like, from the moment this starts happening, I'm like, well, he's going to die. Well, he's sending him on like what seems like a suicide mission.
But you know what? I think their original intention, and if you can kind of clarify, or at least people in the chat or, you know, in the Twitter, YouTube comments can sort of clarify, because I was confused as to how there was confusion about him being in custody. Because when Eduardo went to the prison, and the guy who was in charge of the special forces or the army, I guess, that was sort of securing the prison.
Yeah, that was the army, the special forces later.
The army that was securing the prison. He was like, my orders were to secure. I don't know. He was like, no, your orders were to take him into custody. And he was like, I don't know. I'm just here. You know, like, he just was so aloof. And I was like, how was there miscommunication in this? This is Pablo Escobar again, like, with everything.
True.
Triple check, you know, quadruple check. There should have been no confusion. And so I thought, was he bought off by Pablo Escobar and told not? But it didn't seem that, it didn't appear that way. It appeared like the army was given a specific order, which made me wonder, did somebody else do it to try and like thwart the plan? Like, what is going on here? So
yeah, not 100% clear on why, but could he be bought off? Sure.
Yeah.
You know, it makes a lot of sense.
Which is the only reason why I thought initially that maybe Eduardo would be a little bit safer going to the prison, because they would have him in custody. He'd be surrounded by the troops.
Yeah,
there.
maybe he thought that too. That's why he's like, oh, okay, maybe it's not going to be so bad.
Had he known that was not the case, maybe he still would have gone. Maybe he still would have, Javier still would have sent him. But the circumstances in which it would have happened would have been completely different.
Right. Well, I mean, I could see it being, they could be bought off or something like that. He buys off a lot of people. But it almost maybe to me, like the other option would be that they're just scared to go in there. Because they know if they do go in there, it's going to be all out war. People are going to die. He's not going to go quietly, obviously.
Right. He's like, I don't want to go in there. You go in there. No, you go in there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not doing it. Hey, look, we fortified these walls, man.
Yeah.
We've done our job.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I don't really think so. But, so Gaviria is sending Eduardo there. He's like, okay, you're going to go and you're going to tell him this bold-faced lie, and him, basically he's just like, this is what you got to do. And Eduardo is a very loyal guy, so he's going to go. But I kind of like, it seemed almost like a moment between them where he was like if you go and do this, it's a very dangerous thing, that kind of thing. And it almost seemed like he was willing to sacrifice himself, which ends up coming out later in the conversation with Pablo. Which, by the way, it's either the special forces coming in or this scene between Pablo and Eduardo that probably my favorite of the episode.
Oh yeah.
Because and probably this conversation, just because it was so amazingly intense. Eduardo's just like sweating buckets.
I was sweating buckets.
Well, at first he goes in there, right, to talk to him. Here's the deal. We're gonna do this thing. Blah blah blah. Nobody believed this story, but he's telling it to him like
trying to keep a steady hand.
The character Eduardo doing a pretty good job. Couldn't really tell that he was acting, but we know
right. Even though
what the truth is, and then he got him walking out, and I'm like, oh. Okay.
He made it. Yeah.
Made it out.
No. Even then, I was like, "Oh my God! Please don't let there be a gunshot to the back or something crazy."
Thought that for a second. And then so you know what? Why don't we just call him from in here? And then that's the moment where he's like, "No, I'm gonna call him outside." Yeah. It's rude.
No, you're not. Yeah.
Your mom teach you about being polite, about an invitation. It's like, well, you're supposed to have an option.
Which who are you to lecture me on rudeness? But yeah. We're gonna let that slide.
Exactly. But so him and Pablo talking there, and he's just, of course you said, he's like, you really think I believe this story? Mm-hmm. There's no way. This is an insult to me. In fact, if they hadn't messed with me, I would be where you are. I would be the vice president, minister for justice. Yeah,
we're the same,
We're the same. And this was, we've gotten bits and pieces from Eduardo, but getting, his absolute resolve to be like, we're nothing alike.
Yeah.
Really strong character moment. I was like, it was a kind of a fist pump moment for me to be like, heck yeah, you guys aren't the same. And him to be like, I'm willing to die to see you die, or something to that effect. What did he say? Something like that.
Well, he didn't want, he was like, well, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to let.
No, what Eduardo said to Pablo, because he was basically like,
oh, he's
I would
rather,
dead.
he was like, if I would rather, basically something to the effect of, I'm fine with giving up my life if it means that I can see you die. So.
Exactly. And that was the moment he could have died easily. And I think he knew that.
Yeah.
But he's like, whether this happens or not, one, when he's like, oh, they're not going to kill the Minister of Justice, that'd be an act of war. I'm like, oh, they're all acts of war. I'm not really sure why that would be different. But sure, they're not going to do that. So in him saying that to Pablo and being like, heck no.
Right.
I would have done the same thing. He's like, he sent you in here to die, right? He either sent you in here to actually, help me come out. Probably not true. Or for me to shoot you, or he knew that you were, that you'd be a hostage or something like that. And Eduardo being like, yep, I did the same thing. I was real strong there because Pablo's trying his hardest to intimidate him, and I'm like a character that's finally just like, no more. And that's kind of where everybody's at with him.
They're fed up. Yeah, I completely agree. That was one of my most favorite scenes of this whole series for a couple of reasons. Number one, because, in a lot of these interactions that he has, I always try to envision myself as that character.
As Pablo or as the other character?
No, as the character that's sort of being intimidated or the one that's sort of being attacked. Because I always try to imagine myself, if I was faced with somebody like Pablo Escobar and I had to make this decision of whether or not to yield to him or to stand up and potentially lose my life, how would that have been for me? So, of course, I'm shaking in my boots thinking about what if I had been in that prison with him and he's, all up in my grill talking about this is what's going to happen or else you're going to die. So I thought that it was a really powerful scene because of that. It was a lot of tension between it. And I especially liked it because it was one of the first moments in the few recent episodes that we've seen Pablo back, I feel, in that state of control and that state of calmness, and taking it back to episode 1 where he's like, you know, silver or lead. Right. You know, and just that sense of power and control and just that strong-willedness that he had. Yeah. And it's extremely terrifying, you know, when he has that much control and he's in tune with it. It's a very scary thing to watch. So it was a really powerful scene, and I just enjoyed it. I was like, please don't kill Eduardo. Yeah,
I know, which was great because that's what I was saying. Like, I thought, well, surely he's going to die.
Honor, right? I was trying not to look on Wikipedia and be like, does he live?
Does he never die? Well, and that's what you're saying too, because like all of the power that Pablo has in this moment finally kind of like back in control in some sort of way.
Yeah, I mean, he's still in a really bad situation, but as far as his demeanor, you know, he's not just popping off at the head like he was with Mercado and Galliano. He's still super focused.
He's still crazy, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But that is a powerful position to be in, to have the Vice President Minister of Justice, which is why Gaviria hangs up the phone and doesn't say anything. And at least Eduardo does a good thing of like kind of having a conversation with him so they can hear, so they can know. Yeah. So he doesn't answer, so they don't put him in a position of negotiating.
Which I thought, okay, how did he fall for that? How did Pablo fall for that? Like, you know, that was
a little bit of a weak moment.
It was very obvious.
Yeah,
like,
it seemed very obvious.
So
hello, is anyone there? You know,
so why are you holding me hostage in this prison that's 5,000 meters due south?
But like, who knows? Maybe he's so just like. Maybe because he feels himself so just like in power and just like, I got it.
That's true.
You know, he's kind of blinded by that a little bit. I buy that a little bit. But I thought it was at least smart of Eduardo to do that. But like,
because he knew. He already knew, like, okay, I can't have a conversation with him. Otherwise, it's going to go straight to negotiations. And he probably knew, like, if he got... Because originally, he was going to speak with him, Eduardo on the phone. But I think he knew, like, okay, if we speak with each other, he's going to have... It's going to... That's it. He's going to yield to Escobar. So I thought that was... He's already, multiple times. Yeah. So I thought that was good. He was trying to set it up, like, no, I've got to get him out of it. I've got to save Gabriel from himself. In order so that he can save, you know.
Exactly. So that he can do the right thing. Because in some ways, Eduardo's been that guy kind of pushing him to do the right thing all along. And this time, like, he's absolutely willing to sacrifice himself, which is, like, just amazing. And just the acting in that scene was just terrific.
Superb.
Especially, like, seeing Wagner Moura stare him down, stand over him in that sort of power position, and having him just be like, it is what it is, you know, that kind of thing. Because it was almost like his like face-to-face moment with like the devil or something like that. And him just being like, you do what you got to do. And I would put myself in, I would do the same thing if I were him. Just like absolutely powerful. And yeah, probably my favorite moment of like the series, if not this episode for sure. Which is why I was kind of like, why is it over?
Yeah, I know.
Now it's like really good. It's been great, but this is what I've been watching for, is these kind of moments. So I'd love to see it.
So thankfully, though, Eduardo does.
Yeah,
survive.
Thankfully he does survive. Yeah, exactly. So. And this was the other favorite moment. Which, before we get to that favorite moment, let me quickly talk about iTunes.
Oh, yes. Talk about your other favorite moment, iTunes.
Yeah, my other favorite moment. Folks, head over to iTunes. Find our Narcos after show. Give us a rating and review. This is the last episode. You've been watching for 10 episodes. Surely you're big fans of these two people in the room. Yes. And maybe Dave Abed for like the 3 episodes he was in here. Just got back from Scotland today, I believe.
Oh, nice.
Which is a lovely place to go. Yeah.
Beat me up, Scooty.
Yes. Head over there, give us a rating and review. 5 stars if you really like us. 5 stars if you hate us. 5 stars. Just do the 5 stars thing.
Just do 5 stars.
Really helps out the networks. Helps keep the lights on. Helps us find sponsors and helps us keep shows going. Maybe a season 2. Oh wait, there is a season 2 coming. For us to come back and talk about in the next season. I absolutely can't wait for it.
Yeah, same here. And thank you guys for watching too. Like we've had thousands of views on YouTube for every single episode.
Exactly.
So we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you commenting, leaving us reviews and 5 stars. So keep it up. And season 2 will be even bigger and better. And more cocaine-ier.
Yes.
It's a cool adjective, right?
believe it'd be an ad. If I learn anything from
we just do things as we go here. That's how it goes down at AFTERBUZZ.
Yeah. So the other favorite moment, other than iTunes,
yes,
the special forces coming in there, because those dudes were surgical coming up in there, and it was exciting. So finally, we're just gonna go in there, whether Eduardo lives or not. We got to go in there and get this guy.
Yeah.
Because it's time for this charade of a prison to finally be over. Send these dudes in there, and they meant business. I think it seemed like almost all headshots when they rolled in there.
That was my question. So the special forces, they were completely separate from the Incorruptibles, the Carrillos that started, correct?
Yeah.
Where were these guys the whole season? They came in like Call of Duty, just kicking ass.
Yeah, it wasn't like Call of Duty.
I was like, we could have used you several episodes ago. You would have been coming real handy.
I mean, it just seems like maybe they were just finally like forced to this point to be like, look, we got to really pull out the big guns here.
Literally, yeah.
Literally. And it was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
We've talked about
literally.
We've talked about violence on the show, and like it's gritty and it's real and it's not necessarily glamorized, but it was nice for them to finally let us have a moment of like, go in there and get them, pop these dudes in the head. It seemed like there were maybe almost no casualties of these special force guys. They knew what they were doing. It was really fun to watch that sequence go down.
And this being late 80s, early 90s, where they didn't have as much gear, you know what I mean? And the training, I'm sure, was completely different than it is now. But even still, like, just overly prepared for this. Yeah. And I was like, where were you guys? Like, when he blew up the Palace of Justice, like, we could have used you then.
Yeah,
but better late than never, you know?
Maybe some sort of, like, last-ditch effort, or they got, like, they got to get special permission or something like that.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll allow it. But I did think that, like, man, these guys could have been in.
These guys were that good. I'll chalk it up to the TV gods, just waiting for the moment.
We got to build to this like suspense moment. To it. But maybe they, maybe like in sort of like letting him build himself a prison and all this stuff, they're sort of in some sort of denial of being like, well, look, it's better than, what we got, and he can do all these bad things. It's like, no, just go in there and get him.
Yeah.
Because you got to. I like that moment at the beginning of the episode. We've got him like sort of sitting in his prison, walking around all of his yes men, kind of feeling like, yeah, all the guys that were close to me are kind of gone. Gustavo's gone, Galliano, Moncada are gone. He's got nobody left. He's surrounded by like these like essentially buffoons that are doing like drugs on the job. I mean, I guess.
And I got the sense that he was in a pity party because he felt kind of victimized. Like, these people were taken away from me.
Right.
But it's you are responsible for the reason
especially for those two.
Yeah. I mean, Gustavo, even still, like, he wouldn't have been killed the way that he was killed if it hadn't been for you. Right. But just his whole airiness about it, he just seems sort of, woe is me, and I don't have any friends, and no one will play with me, and I'm stuck in prison for no good reason. Like, it was just really interesting how his mind works, and we can kind of see the wheels turning in his head, and he really thinks that he's a victim in this whole situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how he's going to view himself, because he feels like he's right. Even when he's talking to Eduardo, he's like, look, I would have done better than you.
Yeah.
We're the same.
I came from nothing. And
all exactly.
This stuff.
And I built all this stuff. It's like, okay, dude. I mean, yeah.
Relax. You had a 10, bring it down to a 2.
Yeah, exactly. Let's bring it down a couple notches. But I do like them choosing to have him like walk sort of by himself, surrounded by people, but he's ultimately alone. That I thought that was cool, like sort of imagery. But then, so you see, he gets on the phone with Tata. I always like it when a character like answers the phone and he just starts talking right away. Like, hey, shut up for a second, man. The army's coming. I love nothing more than to hear the sound of your voice and drink a Mai Tai and my, what's that you're saying? The army coming right now?
Why did you say that in the first place?
Yeah, well, I couldn't get in a word in edgewise, dude, because you kept talking. But he's incredibly alone in that moment. So he's like, oh, my wife, thank God. I haven't cheated on her yet today, so I'm really excited to hear her voice. But, he got his son there with a nice little moment for that kid. Get like a nice acting moment. He had the moment before where he said he wanted to kill his baby sister. Aww,
relationship goals. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hashtag relationship goals.
Exactly. But, his son being like, oh, I got to go help my dad. And then grandma being like, you can't do that. He's like, they're going to kill him, which is like, he's right, they are. And, and mom is like, they're not going to do that. Tata slaps him and then grabs him, which I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, and I kind of felt that to be a little corny. Like, almost a little soap opera-ish. Only because,
a little bit.
Like, I understand there was a lot that he did not expose them to. There's a lot that he lied to them about. So, from their understanding, for the most part, they've allowed themselves to sort of create this reality where he's done some bad things, but he's not a bad guy. He's a loving father, a loving husband, a family man. And so I see their compulsion to just want to defend him and want to be there for him and just being so up in arms about, everything. But I don't know. I mean, at a certain point, especially with the mom, with Tata and with Pablo's mom, you kind of have to smack your own self in the face and say, look.
That's who needs the smack, yeah.
He chose his fate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I understand you love him, and of course you have every right to love him. I'm not saying not to love him, but if somebody like this is doing something like, this person is terrorizing an entire country. At some point, you kind of have to just say, this is who he is, and I love this person, but I got to go. You know what I mean? And especially since you have kids now, like, you've got to protect your family, the family that's not selling drugs and killing people and terrorizing everybody.
I mean, the kids have certainly been shielded from it, but Tata and Mom, they know exactly what's going on. They're boxing up money at the end of the episode. They're not blind to it. I honestly think they just like the lifestyle. I think they're just way into that sort of thing. Okay, well, he has to do these bad things, but like, look what we have.
It's a sense of denial.
Yeah, exactly. And they haven't really dove deep into like where those two people are. But Tata knows exactly what's up. Mom knows what's going on, and it's almost like they thought he was untouchable or something like that. Because even the son being like, they're going to go kill him. I got to go help. Okay, kid, you can't really do that. Like 4 feet tall or something like that. But, them or her slapping him or her grandma being like, you don't say that in this house. You got to stay here and watch after your sister or whatever. I think that's just them, like, just gripping in with both hands. Like, nah, this can't be gone, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And it's them trying to hold on to this delusion that's not there.
Absolutely.
And with every attack against Pablo, it bursts their bubble, it breaks the illusion, it takes them out of it. And then they kind of have to sort of deal with the consequences of being in reality. And I think that the son trying to go there, it was just another slap in the face moment for them.
Yeah, a little bit of realism.
Yeah, like, no, this is our family, and no one's gonna destroy what we have and what we created. Like, we're special. And
well, so not even sitting in a prison that he's sort of built for himself, talking about how he's scrapbooking. We got a shot of that book, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Which
will
not
now
even
be on
that.
eBay or Amazon very soon.
Probably, maybe the iTunes bookstore or something.
Right.
Probably not. But even all that stuff couldn't wake them up to it. It had to be this young child being like, they will kill him to wake you guys up to what's really going on. And then, of course, you got Pablo, who, like, one, we know there's a season 2. We know he doesn't die yet or anything like that. But, like, of course he escaped. Of course he had a plan. Because this guy is smart. This guy does have sort of backup plan, and he will look out for himself.
Yeah.
He'd let everybody else get shot, of course.
Of course.
Who knew that was going to happen? All you guys that were just, like, barking orders in the background. Yeah, kill Galliano and Moncada. Like, nothing bad can happen. Like, the first sign of danger, you guys are going first. You got to know that. But
it's for a good cause.
Yeah, exactly. But... you got them boxing up money at the end, and, him being like, what to do, that kind of thing.
Which, and not to harp too much on this moment, but with Pablo Jr. wanting to go to, save his dad and that whole exchange, I kind of saw it as, the delusion was ripped from them, but I also kind of saw it as them being faced with the decision, are we going to continue to follow this man? Like, are we going to go through with this plan? Like, almost enough is enough. Like, are we going to actually be able to make it if we continue on with Pablo? Is this something where if we're going to survive, if we're going to protect our own selves, are we going to have to cut ties with him? So I kind of saw, and maybe I'm just reaching, but I felt like I saw that struggle with the mom and with Tata, like them trying to decide, like, okay, crap, this is, stuff has really hit the fan.
Right.
Do we stay with this guy who now the army is going after. Like, this can't end well for us. And if you want to protect, especially your children, you got to remove yourself. You got to separate yourself from the person who's bringing all of this craziness into your lives. So,
well, speaking of reaching, let's reach right on into predictions.
Nice. I like that.
Segue. Hey, where's the music? Come on,
Segue,
guys.
I
Set that up so
he set it up so
perfectly.
great. Next season, we'll do it.
So that's a great thought about, like, will they follow him or will they go
Just
out on
peace
their own?
out, yeah.
Because in some ways, they're boxing up all that money. They know what to do with it. It's quite possible that they could strike out on their own. I don't necessarily see it happening, but it would be interesting to see that, because at some point they're going to have to decide how close to stick to this guy, because everyone around him dies.
Yeah.
This is the only family he has left. Is Tata willing to sacrifice those two children to stay with him? These are all like sort of like, I don't know, stuff. What do you think next season?
Well, I mean, I know for sure that I mean, she's been so devoted throughout everything. I truly believe that it's till death, like till death do us part. Okay. So I think
she believes in the marriage vows.
She believes in it
more than he does.
She has his mom there too, so I think it's a little bit of feeling like, okay, well, if I abandon him, then I'm also abandoning her. So it's a lot of messiness there,
right?
That I think kind of keeps her there. I mean, number one is just love. She just is in love with the man, so she wants to stay with him. But I think that now they're just starting to questioning everything a lot more, and I wonder how that's going to seep into how things play out with them going forward to season 2. Because when he eventually is found and killed, they're not with him. It's not like they were all together. So was it a situation where they just decided we got to jump ship, or he's kind of sent them on their own? So we'll figure that out.
He sends them off with money to protect them or something like that. It'd be interesting to find out if there is more than a season 2, because I couldn't imagine them having like 5 seasons of the show or something to that effect.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because at least from what I've been hearing is that the whole premise behind Narcos is just to explore a lot of drug lords, who were, behind the drug trade, not only in places like Colombia, but also in the U.S. And you have other drug lords like Griselda Blanco, with Pacho. You also have, I can't remember his name, but the guy from Blow with Johnny Depp and Salma Hayek. His character, because they actually did have Pablo Escobar in that movie. I can't remember exactly what the guy's name is.
That's true. I'll think of it in a
but
second.
there's a lot of other really notorious drug lords that you could introduce into the show. So once
Giorgio, yes.
Yeah. So once the whole Pablo Escobar story kind of runs thin,
if they
you
do
could maybe segue into another person or another plot line.
Well, and also it's called Narcos. It's not called Pablo.
So it's not Pablo Escobar.
Like
so
that'd be interesting. Well, because my thought was like, I mean, one, there's so much to uncover on Pablo. We barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
And we've seen the megalomania, all that kind of stuff surface.
Yeah.
Shall we say? But that would be really interesting to see them chase down some other people. And certainly they're setting up Pacho for something, to be the one who wants to take control. Because now Pablo is still on the run.
Yeah.
And you heard Steve being like, we got to kill the guy.
Yeah.
Basically, we got to take the gloves off. We're not making any more deals, any more sort of like negotiating. That's not happening anymore. And finally, Gaviria is in the place where like we can't negotiate.
Yeah.
That only got us to this place, and it's a temporary fix. And it didn't really solve anything. It didn't stop drug trafficking. It didn't make the country better, any of that kind of stuff. And now at this point we have to kill him. So like Pablo's got to be like in hiding for like another season.
Probably.
I mean, no one knows where he's been necessarily, but like he's got to be in like deep underground, some sort of thing like that.
But they've shown us so much, and they've stretched the story so far into where it ends. You know, it's kind of difficult to see them stretching this hiding part for another 3-4 seasons.
Yeah,
so.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if they would do that, because at some point, like, he's just going to continue to be desperate, and maybe he can go into hiding, but like that's just him living like kind of like living like Osama bin Laden or something like that, where like.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. But I would be really curious to see like them go after those other people or make them sort of main characters. I'd really like to find out more about Pacho. kind of thing. Him and being sort of like a more civilized gangster, but a gangster nonetheless.
Either way, they will definitely have to come correct, because I think Wagner Moura has done a terrific job as Pablo Escobar.
Absolutely.
I mean, he really has been sort of the anchor of the show.
Absolutely.
So if they do that transition, it would have to be with characters who are very, just as strong and whose storylines are just as diverse and unique and just as crazy as Pablo Escobar's.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and then we'll continue to follow Steve. What happens with his marriage?
Yeah.
I kind of think his marriage is probably over. I mean, her going in there, shutting off the lights. I mean, maybe it's not gonna be a quick thing, but I could see them maybe opening up season 2 with and Connie left.
I really hope that we just learn, because even though Steve is considered one of the main characters, he narrates the show, so there's no doubt about it that he's actually in. He's a huge integral part of the storyline, but I still feel like we haven't gotten as much meat out of him, and the focus has been on Escobar, so it's obvious why. But I would love to kind of delve a little bit and keep exploring and sort of get into why he seems to now have this obsession with staying in Colombia.
Sure.
And then once Pablo Escobar, that storyline ends, like what's next for him?
Yeah, what's next for him? Does he go home then? Maybe
exactly.
not. Doesn't necessarily appear that way.
Yeah.
I'll make a bold prediction that it is kind of Javier. That there's going to be some split between those two.
Yeah.
Maybe him finding out that Javier. I don't know. There's something about it where I can't necessarily let it go, and I'm like, Javier could have absolutely set him up. It would be great to have some tension between those two characters, because Javier has been a little more slippery than Steve, but then Steve's moral line is kind of way off the map at this point too. So yeah, I don't know. I see that. Well, because if it's corruption within the cartel, there could be corruption within the DEA too.
Of course.
Which you mentioned. So I could see them further exploring that storyline too.
I'm going to make a big, since we're going big and going bold and going home.
Yeah, there you go.
I would definitely love for there to be some semblance of a showdown between Pablo and Steve. Like, even if it's just, for a few minutes, nothing super corny and pull out your gun and, that type of thing, like old Western type story, like Clint Eastwood or anything like that. But I would definitely love to see, because they've both been kind of missing each other, but it's weird. It's kind of like they've been trying to find their way to each other throughout this first whole season, and so I'd love to see them at least connect once, and
it would be
that might
great.
be interesting.
Who knows? We will find out next season.
Or Steve is the one who actually kills them.
Ooh, that'd be really cool.
That'd be interesting.
Well, that'll do it for our season.
That'll do.
This has been a lot of fun.
That'll do.
Discussing it with you, Ashley. I've had a lot of fun doing this each week. Where can the people find you online?
You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Ashley_Chatman. Please share your comments. Give us your feedback. We'd love to hear what you think of this entire series. And see you guys next season.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Isaac Johnson, Instagram, The Isaac Johnson, and tonight on CBS at 10 o'clock, I'm going to be on CSI Cyber. The East Coast has already aired, and my phone's been kind of blowing up from my family.
And he's blowing up.
Some family over there. Well, not blowing up. It ain't a big part, but it's a part all the same, so it's a lot of fun.
He's going to be hiding money in his couch very soon, people.
Yeah, so that I can pay my rent next month. Yeah, how about that? But yeah, tune in for that. You can see me at the top of the episode. It's a lot of fun. And I guess we'll see you
next season. Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
Hosts only do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.